Hi, and welcome to Origin of Concepts. In this episode, I'll show you the Royal Regalia, the symbolism and the origin and the inspiration source for this outfit up here. You know, everything regarding the royal houses and the king and the queen. I'll focus on the outfit of the king, because then everything, solves itself. So let's start. The royal regalia are the sacred symbolic objects associated with a king and the royal houses. All the all the stuff you see there. And the entire palette of royal concepts is a mirror of the Milky Way center. So let's take a look at the Milky Way. Okay, first of all, the monarch plays the role as the mediator between heaven and earth. And this is a role we can trace back to ancients of the ancients of the ancients and ancient Egypt, and I guess further back to the dawn of man. And this divine person, so to speak, or the meditator, is always visualized in the Milky Way center by the golden disk here as the head and the body of the striped shadow. This is, to make a long story short, this is manifested spirit in man. And then this man becomes the meditator. And this is the newborn king here. It's actually the prince, but it's the king in this case. And the queen is, of course, his counterpart in the Milky Way center, which is the female shadow here. They are good together here. So here you see the prince and the queen, because the king is, in ancient terms, the king is not visible. He's the overall, non-physical aspect. And the queen will bring the son of the mother, and the queen and the king will get a child, which is the manifest spirit. So, but here you see the newborn king and the queen. Okay, let's start with the throne, because the king is always sitting in a throne. And the throne is the entire Milky Way center here. Let me try to make the throne. This is the seat of the throne. You sit here on the disk in the Milky Way center, and here you got the sides of the throne, or the feet, you decide. And often you see lion pawns beneath the legs of the throne, and it's because the silvery shadow here is the lion pawn with the claws here, the striped shadow. So that's the reason why you got lion pawns on the throne. And the golden color of the throne is, of course, the golden light here from the disk in the Milky Way center, also known as the red part, or the golden part of the Milky Way center. And now I have to delete some of my stuff here, because the throne is almost, is often, put on a plateau, and you got some steps up. And this is the plateau, this shadow here, and the striped shadow is of course the steps up to the plateau of the throne. Okay, it was the throne. And I can, we go on to the crown, because the king always wears a crown. And the golden crown is the striped shadow here. Let me outline it. It's a crescent, and the stripes here is the crown. And in ancient times, when this concept was made, they imagined the crown was put on head of the golden disc here. So the golden disc is the head with the crown, the spirit in your head, so to speak, because you are the meditator between spirit and the mortal world. And of course, the golden color represents the golden light from the disk, the golden part of the Milky Way center, which, by the way, is flowing through the striped shadow here, through the body of the king into the mortal world, so he can be the divine leader of the land and the people. Yeah. And then we got the queen's silvery diadem, which is of course the same crescent here with the stripes here. So that's her diadem. And the reason why it's silver and not gold is because the silvery color is of course related to the silvery shadow here, which is the female shadow, or the shadow with the female posture, used for basically every single female mother and woman in every single myth around the world you ever read. And this crown is also the womb of the mother, the crescent. Okay, so that's the crown. And let's move on to the sword, because the king always wears his sword in his belt. And the sword is, of course, the striped shadow here. And the cross part on the sword is, of course, the shadows here. So it forms the cross in the sky. And this is what the sword represents. It's the crossing point to point out the spirit in the Milky Way center. So the shadows is crossing, and in the middle you got the golden light of spirit. And this also means that the sword is the it's the connection between the divine and mortal world. And of course the Christian cross and all kinds of crosses. X marks the spot, so to speak. Okay, and then the king also got his orb, the golden ball. And no, it's not those balls. There's only one. And the golden orb is visualized here by the golden disk in the Milky Way center. That's the golden ball. And the ball got like 2 bands, it looks like this. It's like 2 bands crossing horizontal and vertical. And let me explain what that means, or where the idea to this concept comes from. Because the vertical and horizontal bands on the orb represents the dark shadows crossing over the disk. And, the the same as the sword. Here you got the one shadow. It's actually, this shadow. And then you got the stripe shadow here, which is the way you drive on the freeway, and you have to take the run off to the mortal world, so to speak. So that's what the bands on the orb means, the point where the divine and mortal world meets. The crossing of the mortal and divine worlds here. Or the two rivers, that's a very famous subject in many ancient myths. Two rivers meets in the delta, and that's the same concept. Okay, so remember to take the right lane, so you don't go to hell. And then the king also got the scepter. And the scepter is, of course, the striped shadow here. And sometimes the scepter got like a diamond on top, because that's the golden spirit light, the shining gem, or the whatever. And by the way, I forgot something before regarding the sword, which is very, very important. Let me draw the sword here again, and the crossing point, because the king's sword always sitting in his belt, which is very important, because the belt is the shadows here, and this is his belt, so it is always sitting in the belt, and when it goes back here behind his back, so this is his belt, wearing the sword. And this is also a very famous thing in the ancient world. It goes all the way back to, in the ancient Greek. So, and then the king also wears knee band or a garter, and the garter is the striped shadow here. Let me use a pinky color. This is the garter around his leg, or just above the knee. You can see here he's wearing, under the knee. So let's find that. Because the knee in the Milky Way center is, of course, the silvery shadow here. This is the knee, and the garter sits on the knee, and it's the same garter the girls or females use at the wedding. They put on a garter, and then the groom must take it off to verify the marriage. And this is, of course, the reason, because this is the female shadow here. So, and you also got the order of the garter in the British royalties. So you can go see my garter video, yeah. Okay, so that's why the king is wearing a garter on his knee. Then the king, also wears a coat or a cape in red on the outside and white or snow white with leopard dots on the inside. And first of all, the shoulders is the dark shadows here bending over the head, the disc. So this is the shoulders of the coat or cape. And every time you read any myth and you hear anything about a shoulder, this is the shoulders. Now you're aware. The red part of the cape symbolizes the red part of the Milky Way center, which is of course the red disk light here flowing into the mortal world. He is the divine king, with the spirit, and he is the meditator, so he can give you some wisdom. And then we got the, I wrote here that the red part is manifested spirit in the mortal world, the red part of the Milky Way. And then we got the snow white part of the cape, and we have already been there because the snow white cape also got leopard dots, which symbolizes purity, which is an allegory, so to speak, for unmanifested mother spirit, the purest spirit, which is not manifested as the golden light yet. So the pre-state of manifested spirit. And this is, of course, visualized by the mother here, the queen, the shadow, silvery, white, snow white shadow with the female, the posture. And this shadow here is also known as the leopard skin in so many myths, because you can see all the black dots here on the white fur is the leopard dots. So here you got the snow white part of the cape. All right. And then the kings like to have long hair, because long hair is a phenomenon which origin in the ancient Egypt. They got the side lock, and they got the long beard on the pharaohs, and hair is a very important symbol, because it also represents the bridge or the connection between the spirit and the mortal world. It's the bridge, so to speak. And let me draw the king's hair here, because this is his head, and on his head he got the long hair. The striped shadow is always the hairs in the sky. And what else can I tell about hair? This is also the side lock from Egypt, by the way, on the children. And there's not much to say about hair. Yeah, in I think it's in the British court, the judges, wears long, long hair, and this is also from here. This it origins from the Milky Way center too. Yes, and then the king likes to be a little feminine, so he wears tight white stockings. And let me show you where we can find them, because they are here. Again, this is the king's leg, so to speak. So therefore he always wears, tight white stockings, because it's the white shadow and it looks like, naked legs. So that's the reason for wearing that. And by the way, I also think that's the very early origin, of modern stockings for girls, with the garter band and all the sexy underwear, so to speak, or the knee socks for football player, what they had, the girls, in American football and stuff. I think the very origin comes from here in ancient times. Okay, and then we got kings always wear colored gems. It can be on their finger rings, or in the crown, or the shoes and other places. And the colored gems, let me reset here, is an allegory of all the colored stars in this area of the Milky Way. Because here we got a lot of colored gems all over the place. And I'm pretty much sure that they were visible by the naked eyes before we got all the artificial light here on Earth, because those gems and colored stones are mentioned as far back as we got texts, ancient texts. So here you got the colored gems. Okay, and then the kings always wear some weird shoes. And the shoes always wear the same gems as I just spoke about. And the shoes of the king represents the big foot in the Milky Way center. And here is the king's foot. In the Milky Way center. And this is every time you hear anything about a foot, it comes from here. And on the foot or on the sandals or whatever, you got the gems here strapped to the foot. And yeah, I think that's all for the royal shoes. Bigfoot. Okay, and then we got the if we go back to the throne, because the throne always stands in the throne room, and we already know where the throne is, or the seat of the throne, and it's of course placed in the throne room here. Surrounded by the dark shadows. Just follow the outlines or the inlines, maybe. So here you got the throne room. And you also got the Hall of Mirrors, which is very famous in a lot of castles and palaces in the royal houses around Europe. Or where else we got the palaces. And the Hall of Mirrors is, of course, the same hall as the Hall of the Throne. But the mirror is visualized by this area. In here, this area above the disc is the mirror in many, many, many myths. Or the mirror lake, the myths about girls looking into the well or into the lake, and a lot of things happens. So this is the mirror, and used by the royals as the Hall of Mirrors. Copycats. And then when you're inside the royal suites, there's a lot of curtains, and they got the curtain ropes or tiebacks, which is, of course, the striped shadow here. Now I'll try to illustrate it. It looks like this, and then they can make a knot around the curtain so the curtains can stay open. So it's the striped shadow here. All right, I think that's basically it. And then we need the cross, of course, because on the top of the crown or the scepter or on the orb, there was added a Christian cross, as always. I wrote here, and as usually, the Christian planted a cross on everything as a symbol of supremacy of Christian faith and Christ's dominion over the world. Yes, and if you and let me show you the cross, because the cross is, just the shadows here crossing over the divine light, the light of the world in Christian terms and Jesus terms. So that's what the cross meaning. They just copycatted like the royals from ancient times. And yeah, and by the way, we got the orb here. And I think you have seen on many spears on churches and towers and everywhere you see the golden ball. And it's commonly believed that this is represents the earth, but it doesn't. It represents the golden disk in the Milky Way center, the golden ball. And the relation to Earth is that the shining light from the ball is shining through the striped shadow here into the mortal world. And the striped shadow is also used as an analogy in basically every single myth as the earth or the flesh. So here you got the golden ball or the orb on top of spires everywhere around the world. Okay, I think that's all. It is all. So now you know everything about the royal regalia and all their merchandise copied from others who copied from others, all the way back to ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia and who knows. Because they all, got the same view of the Milky Way center up there. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and until my next video, take care. Bye.